Pau Hana Years presents a special program looking at Flora Pacifica 1981 entitled Asia. In 1964, Flora Pacifica was under the joint sponsorship of the Friends of Foster Gardens and the Friends of the East-West Center. Because of the success of the 1964 show, Flora Pacifica continued through subsequent years. In 1970, the Friends of Foster Gardens decided to incorporate the exhibit portion of the organization into Flora Pacifica, a nonprofit organization. In 1972, Flora Pacifica was held at the H. Alexander Walker Estate. The 1973 and 1974 shows, entitled Flower Power and Plants and People of Hawaii, won Bulkley medals awarded by the Garden Club of America. This year's program theme centers around Asia, religion and philosophy, arts, man and nature.
My name is Jim Hubbard, and I'm a landscape architect, and I'm co-designer with Paul Weisick of the Foster Botanic Garden of the Flora Pacific exhibits. They started in 1964 at the East-West Center and we've done about 10 of these shows over the years. And the concept behind Flora Pacifica is to show how people and plants relate to each other throughout the ages, from prehistory on. So how do the people use them for food, and for shelter and clothing, and their religious significance, and the beauty of them through painting and art, and that sort of thing. So the concept of designing a show like this is to give a background for these beautiful artifacts that are lent by people in the community. They're very generous people who donate these artifacts and who lend these plants, and the wonderful flower arrangers who do the flower arrangements. Put it all together and design a background for this wonderful theme. We've taken the University of Hawaii Art Gallery, which is essentially a glass cage in a bamboo forest, and it's about 60 feet on a side, 60 feet square, and we have developed a beautiful exhibit outside the gallery and inside the gallery, doing walkways and waterfalls and water pools throughout the bamboo grove to give a feeling of indoor-outdoor exhibition space. In order to design something like this, you have to think about how people are going to, first of all, how people are going to see it and where they're going to enter the show, and where they're going to exit it, and what they're going to see. Of course, there's a gallery catalog that tells them what they are looking at also. So we started on the plan. We started at the entrance to the art gallery complex and brought the people design-wise down through the bamboo grove and into a marketplace section, which is essentially on the outside of the gallery. You'll see later on. And then we bring them into the main gallery, which we have set up as a religious philosophical temple, if you would put it that way. What people think of when they have plants that they've used all their lives, they have a religious or philosophical significance to them. So this gallery where we're standing right now has been designed with that thing in mind. So essentially, it's an S-curve floor plan. You walk in one door, you go through an S-curve design walkway, and then you exit the opposite door, and then you go out into the garden at the rear of the exhibit. Now, there was nothing here when we came. This is an empty room, essentially. It's 60 feet square, and there are 4 round posts in the center of it to hold up the roof. And what we've done is taken these long 14-foot panels, and we have suspended them from the ceiling and the floor in a curvilinear pattern, almost like oriental fans. So it separates this room into 5 distinct sections. The entry section, the 2 end sections, the central hallway, and the exit section. And these oriental fans act as backdrop to these beautiful art and flower arrangements. In order to get everything is curvilinear. The building is essentially a rectangle, but with 45-degree angle corners cut off of the building. So we've taken the 45-degree angle axis and then superimposed large circles of various sizes as the floor plan. And we have built plywood stages or decking, raised decking up above the floor 6 inches. It's almost like being under a kitchen countertop so people can get right up underneath them. And then upon this deck, we will put dried rice and painted floors and raked white sand or whatever, bamboo leaves. We will cover this decking with that material to correspond with the plant material that we are discussing. We've also brought in fiberglass. We've constructed and brought in fiberglass, and we will fill these fiberglass sections with water, and so you'll have a lot of water play in this room also. It's been a very tedious job to do this. We've been in this room for nearly 3 weeks with a crew of 4 carpenters and 4 painters and a lot of volunteers, and this is the effect that we've gotten to this point. At this point, we are at the last of the general construction, and now we're beginning to do the flower arranging and the placing of the artifacts itself.
My name is Paul Weissek. I'm one of a host of volunteers working on Flora Pacifica 81. This year, our Flora Pacifica show deals with the plants and the people of tropical Asia and North Asia. Flora Pacifica historically began up here at the university campus, specifically at the East-West Center in 1964. We've done a series of these shows ever since. Many people say, well, what is Flora Pacifica really about? I think Anna's wonderful song in The King and I called Getting to Know You has an awful lot to do with how we feel about and why we go about doing Flora Pacifica. We feel that by getting to know the peoples around the world other than ourselves, getting to know their history, their culture, how they live, why they do things in the way they do, will go a long way toward forging another link in that great long chain which is required for better understanding of our fellow man around the world. And hopefully and eventually this should lead to greater feelings of sympathy and peace. Flora Pacifica, in dealing with plants, because we're plant-oriented, this whole scheme grew out of the Friends of Foster Garden in 1964, thereby logically dealing with plants and people, has examined the entire Pacific Basin during the last, 10, 15 years. Our last shows were 7 and 8 years ago, were held out of doors. This year's show at the new art gallery at the University of Hawaii marks a return to our original format for the show at the then brand new East-West Center, where we did a museum quality show with marvelous artifacts from all over the Pacific world. This year, as I said, we're returning to that format. We have some fascinating and very valuable artifacts, almost all of them from private collections, very few of them ever seen before by the public. These artifacts, as we will see in a couple of minutes, are used to illustrate the relationship between plants and the people of Asia. Now, if you'd like to follow me, we'll go into the exhibit itself, and we will see and discuss some of those exhibits. As we begin our tour of Flora Pacifica, we enter into the Southeastern Asian exhibit with one of the most important plants spiritually throughout Asia, the banana. The banana, as a religious symbol, covers Buddhism, Hinduism, and Christianity, which may come as a surprise. Being one of man's most ancient cultivated plants, it has developed proportionate importance for him. The leaf of the banana plant is the symbol of the Buddhist scriptures. The trunk has symbolism to the Hindus, and it may be of some surprise to find that in modern times, the flower of the banana is the symbol of Christianity in that part of Asia. The artifacts which Flora Pacifica has on display are all from local sources, all from private homes in Honolulu, most of them never before seen in public. The artifacts derive from Bali, mostly from Thailand, I should say, some from India. All have a very special ethereal feeling about them, reflecting those people's attitudes and feelings about the banana plant as part of their own life force, part of what keeps them going, so to speak, in their day-to-day living. These are interesting ceremonial temple drums from Southeastern Asia, used in accordance or with some of the ceremonies in the temples. This very beautiful little spirit house from Thailand is remarkable in its detail of design and construction. The bowls, the lacquered bowls, and more in the foreground there, are also from Thailand. The care, the detail put into these little shrines or religious houses, so to speak, are typical of the great care of the people and their attitude toward their religion. Farther up to the north, one of the most marvelous plants, and it's very important to us now in the Western world, is the chrysanthemum. The chrysanthemum is important throughout Northern Asia, China, Korea, Okinawa, and Japan. It goes back into very, very ancient times, was mentioned in early Chinese literature. During the Ming Dynasty, there was virtually a chrysanthemum cult. Poets wrote poems about the chrysanthemum. There were great contests in the growing of hybrid chrysanthemums of different colors and shapes and forms. This really reached its culmination, its peak, so to speak, I believe during the Ming Dynasty in China, where virtually all of the kinds of chrysanthemums that we know today were produced. This is a lovely lady of the Ming Dynasty of China. From China, the chrysanthemum was carried to Korea and then to Japan. In keeping with its great significance, it had relationship to the sun. It looked like a sunburst, a source of energy. It became the official symbol, at least the kiku, the 16-petal chrysanthemum, became the symbol of the Japanese royal house and is still so used today. Farther down to the south, we don't find chrysanthemums anymore. You may recognize here, incidentally, some of the chrysanthemums found locally in Hawaiian flower shops. Most of these big ones were flown in from the mainland as a gift, over a couple thousand of them. To the south, on the island of Bali, is a very, very special religious observance, completely tied in with the production, the consumption of rice. The paintings that are on display at Flora Pacifica, interestingly enough, were done by children in a village in Bali. These were selected because they depict every aspect of the planting, the growing, and the harvesting of rice. The lady in this picture is developing a religious offering, a temple offering, to be presented as they are at times of planting, at times of harvest, to mark, to propitiate whatever their feelings are at that time of the year. The Balinese have even developed a rice goddess. This is primarily a village goddess. Here is a temple scene in one of the children's paintings depicting one of these rice harvest festivals. Rice, as you might imagine, involved or consumed the attention of the daily life of these people on a 12 months out of the year basis. Temple offerings such as these, and these symbolize the kinds of temple offerings. These happen to be utilizing bananas and other Southeastern Asian fruits and flowers, symbolize the people's attention, the combination of their religion, their agriculture. Rice was, and of course still is, the very staff of life of these people. They live, literally live, eat, sleep, and die rice. notice some of the great details on these children's paintings. It's remarkable enough to think that they're children's paintings, but look at the depiction of details in their lives. The clothes they wear, the objects they are carrying. Many of these objects will be seen in other parts of Flora Pacifica. They are containers for the carrying and storage of rice, for example. Farther to the west, in the great subcontinent of India, and the very old Hindu religion, there are two plants that stand out as great symbols for Hinduism, and later on they appear in Buddhism also. One is the water lily and/or the lotus, which symbolizes the emergence of man from the muck, from the slime, so to speak, and the banyan tree, whose roots you can see in the foreground of the picture, hanging from the ceiling. The banyan tree was the tree of life to the Hindus, representing earth and heaven, as well as sky. The banyan tree has another close relative, not actually depicted in this Flora Pacifica, the peepal tree, which is the symbol of Buddhism, but the two banyans seem to be tied together in their symbolism. The great banyan behind Iolani Palace, incidentally, is of this same species, and of course all local people have seen this banyan tree, and one can readily visualize how the tremendous branching and root system of the banyan tree would give this feeling of the tree of life. The artifacts in this section, of course, are primarily from India. Moving back up to the northern part of our Asian journey, we return to a bamboo section, bamboo being, again, a very important symbolic plant all through Asia, incidentally, not just in the northern Asia, but there are kinds of bamboo that will grow in very cold climates as well as those that grow in the tropics. The bamboo has always been a symbol of vitality, of strength and flexibility, of resilience, the strength of man, the strength of nature, the ability to withstand the storm and pop back up again unscathed. Bamboo, as depicted in this lovely Japanese screen, has been the subject of a considerable artistic endeavor. The artifacts depicted now are all sorts of things that are made out of bamboo, paintbrushes, musical instruments. Bamboo, of course, is one of man's most useful plants. Here's a little bow and arrow set made out of bamboo, some writing utensils, some more musical instruments. The kinds of utensils and artifacts made from bamboo, absolutely legion. Things are woven from bamboo, containers, thatch, construction materials, and the like. In juxtaposition to the colorful but serene feeling of the plants as religious and philosophical symbols, we move into an Asian marketplace scene. Now, the marketplace anywhere in the world, not just Asia, but anywhere in the world, is more than just a place to buy and sell things. The marketplace traditionally has been a place to meet friends, a place to exchange news, a place to gossip, a place where young people can meet under the watchful eyes of elders in a socially acceptable way. The marketplace has been one of the great social centers all over the world. Even in our contemporary society, it always takes twice as long to go marketing as one would imagine in the rather impersonal contemporary marketplaces. You always meet one's friends. You catch up on how the kids are doing, how many teeth have fallen out, who's retired, who died, and people get together and chat in a marketplace. So our Asian marketplace is filled with those kinds of things that people go to see, they go to buy, they go to feel, they go to talk about. It's a colorful, noisy place filled with people and filled with goods. In our case, the marketplace depicts the fruits, the vegetables, the artifacts, the commodities, the things that deal with the keeping or the serving or the storing of fruits and vegetables, and other plant materials. Here, for example, are some spinning wheels for cotton, one from Japan and the other one from Korea. In both places, of course, cotton, which is one of man's oldest cultivated plants also, is a very, very important market item. In other places of the Orient, farther to the south, we find marvelous baskets. Incidentally, I believe these are woven out of bamboo, containing some of the plant materials, all grown in Hawaii now, imported to Hawaii over the past few decades, that are important to those people. Here's tralmugra fruit, for example, from Burma, which was once used and still is being used as a medicinal plant. Marvelous woven containers for the storage and carrying of food from Indonesia. Citrus, incidentally, all of the citrus that we know, with the exception of grapefruit, which is sort of a hybrid developed in the New World, are from Asia, bringing up the point that we are so spoiled these days, we have no concept, no realization at all of the enormous variety of food brought to our supermarkets for our daily convenience from all corners of the world. As we look at some of these fruits and vegetables from Asia alone, we realize that they have traveled from places thousands of miles apart in Asia, converging on any average American city in our supermarkets. There's some more citrus, for example, which we take for granted. As I said, they all derive from Asia. Coconuts, of course, which we here in Hawaii are very, very familiar with, and which have found great commercial use throughout modern-day Western civilization. These are some rather interesting Filipino artifacts, some interesting jars, containers used for the keeping and transporting of oils and other liquids. Flowers that we have from southeastern Asia, of course, include this magnificent torch ginger, which was brought into Hawaii a number of years ago as an import, and is now actually has gone wild in some places on the windward sides of the island where the rainfall is heavy enough. We have a great debt for many of the Asian areas for the flowers that we grow. You'll see crown flower to the left side of this picture, and a bed of marigolds down through the center of this section of the marketplace devoted to India. Although marigolds technically are Mexican in origin, they have been taken over by the Indians as their national flower, so they were used to enliven the Indian marketplace. These masks from Sri Lanka are folk art masks, typical of those found in some of the markets in Sri Lanka. Oh, here are some spices which derive from India and Sri Lanka that we take for granted. We see them on our supermarket shelves without a thought as to who first came up with them. You will recognize all sorts of green cabbage, wong bok, mangoes, plums, peaches, apricots, a myriad of plant materials derived. There's tea there in the lower right-hand side. Tea comes originally from the mountains of India toward the Burma side. Here are some bitter melons and nori, or seaweed, which forms a very, very important part of the diet in the Orient, as it did in early days for Hawaiians. The large Chinese, it's more like a squash, that wasn't a watermelon, is used in making soup, now found in local markets, and of course all sorts of plums. Western temperate zone gardeners are indebted to China also for all sorts of flowers which are depicted in this marketplace, not only chrysanthemums, but roses and different kinds of lilies. China was one of the great sources of flowering plants for the West. Depicted here are some of the most important things in any of the Asian marketplaces. We just saw some rice and wheat and millet. There are other fruits, carambola, which we'll probably recognize, Java almonds. I'm sure some of you use the lemongrass for flavoring in your home cooking.
And there's some citrus there called Buddha's hand right in the center, but I'm afraid we can't see that too closely. These are lovely ceremonial umbrellas from Bali, and a marvelous Balinese lion guarding the show. Many other kinds of flowers have come to us from southeastern Asia. You'll recognize pearl ginger there on the lower right, and the big tall red ginger at the top. All of these things are common garden flowers now in Hawaii that we tend to take for granted. At one time or another, they were brought into Hawaii, carefully tended and planted, and are now here for our enjoyment and use.
In the span of but a few short minutes, we have completed Flora Pacifica's Asian tour. We have toured from North Asia to South Asia, all the way to the west, to the wonders of ancient India. We have investigated some of the philosophical details, the rice goddess of Bali. We have seen the fruits, the vegetables, the plant materials that Asian people have traditionally bent to their various uses. Many of these uses go back into man's earliest possible times. Some of the Chinese products, as we've mentioned, go back 3,000 and 4,000 years. We now have these in our daily lives. We see them every day in our own supermarkets in our Western civilization. We hope that this has given you some appreciation for what Asia has given to the entire world. We started out in the north, and we now are ending our tour of Flora Pacifica's Asia, back, coming full circle to the lovely bamboo of China, Japan, and Korea. We hope you've enjoyed this short but intense tour, and we look forward to seeing you again sometime in Flora Pacifica. Mahalo.